Picture this. It is 11:15 at night. The apartment is quiet. In that particular way, it gets quiet when you have stopped pretending to be okay. Your phone is face down on the nightstand, screen off, deliberately placed so you cannot see your own reflection in it. You have not heard from him in 4 days, maybe 5, maybe longer if you stop counting, which is itself a kind of answer. And the question you keep returning to, the one that is keeping you from sleep, is not whether he is busy. He is busy. Of course he is busy. The question is whether his silence is the same silence it used to be. The comfortable silence of two people who do not need to perform interest in each other every 3 hours, or whether it is the new kind, the kind with a door shut somewhere inside it, the kind where he is composing messages to other people and not to you, the kind where he has decided to let the silence do the work that a hard conversation would have done, and somehow that is supposed to be the kinder option. You are not crazy for noticing. You are not needy for noticing. You are noticing because there is something to notice. Here's the truth. The silent treatment, when it comes from an avoidant man, is not what you have been told it is. It is not a tactic. It is not a strategy. It is not a chess move designed to make you run back to him, trembling, mouth open, willing to be grateful for the smallest crumb of attention. And it is not, despite what your friends have been gently suggesting over a glass of wine, a sign that he is healing from you. It is none of those things. It is almost the opposite of all of them. And I want to walk you through this slowly, because the version of this story you have been telling yourself, the one that has you up at night wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you pushed him away, wondering if you were too much, too available, too present, too eager, is not the story that is actually happening. The story that is actually happening has you in a different role entirely. You are not the cause of his silence. You are the witness to it. And what you are witnessing is the clearest confession an emotionally unavailable man has ever made in the only language he actually has. Let me be clear about something. An avoidant is not a man who does not feel. He is a man who feels too much and has never been taught what to do with the feeling. So he does the only thing his nervous system knows how to do. He shuts the door. He goes still. He lets the silence pour into the space where a conversation should be. And he tells himself this is honesty. This is boundaries. This is taking care of himself. This is finally being a man about it. None of that is what it is. What it is, in plain language, is a man who cannot tolerate the proximity of being needed by someone he actually cares about, choosing distance over repair because distance feels safer than repair, and repair feels like a kind of death to him. Death of the part of him that has been running from intimacy since he was old enough to form a relationship with anyone. He did not expect you to understand this. He expected you to read his silence as punishment, to go quiet with shame, to shrink back into a smaller version of yourself so he could breathe again. He expected you to be the version of yourself he could handle, not the version of yourself he could actually love. And here is the part that matters. When you stopped shrinking, when you went silent back, when you declined to perform the apology he never asked for out loud, something inside him began to malfunction. Because your silence was not his silence. Your silence was something he had not prepared for. And here is something most people do not see coming. The moment you go quiet on an avoidant man is the moment he starts to do something he has not done in months, possibly years. He starts to wonder. The wondering begins small. He opens the conversation in his head. He rehearses what he might say if he texted you. He imagines what your face would look like. He notices the empty chair. He notices the absence of your laugh in the room he is sitting in by himself, and the wondering grows. By the second day, the wondering has become a low-grade inquiry. By the fourth day, the inquiry has become a wait. He did not expect you to disappear into your own life. He expected you to orbit him, waiting, checking the phone, willing the screen to light up with his name. He expected you to keep publishing yourself into his contact list so he could feel the pull of your attention without ever having to reciprocate it. He expected you to be the one who held the door open while he decided whether to walk through it. And the moment you let the door close behind you, gently, without slamming it, without sending a single text about how hurt you were, that is the moment his entire internal architecture, the whole architecture of how he thought this relationship worked, began to come down. I want to walk through this with you one piece at a time, because this is the part of the script that is going to matter most, and I want you to see it clearly. When an avoidant goes silent, what he is actually doing, beneath the language he gives his friends, beneath the clipped little sentences about needing space, is creating a void. He intends the void to be a sentence. He intends it to be a verdict. He intends for you to read the void as your fault, and for your reading of the void to make you small enough that he can fit back into the relationship without having to change a single thing about himself. That is the choreography. That is the script. That is what he thought was going to happen. And it is the script another version of you, a version of you he had trained slowly, without either of you noticing, was willing to run for several chapters. Here's the thing. That version of you no longer exists. You know this because she is the one who would have texted him at 10 past 1 in the morning, 3 days in, asking if everything was okay, offering to be less, offering to give him more room, offering to make the shape of herself easier for him to be near. She is the one who would have asked her friends what she did wrong, would have replayed the last 10 conversations, hunting for the inflection point, would have sent the long, careful, restrained message designed to be so unneedy that it could not possibly be read as needy. She is the one who apologized for needing. She is the one who settled into being a softer, smaller, easier woman so that a man who could not love her fully could love her enough. That version of you served a function. That function is over. Let me explain something slowly. Your silence after the rejection is not absence. It is not a withdrawal. It is not, despite what your sister said at brunch yesterday, an emotional shutdown. It is a reorientation. It is you, finally, turning the front of your body in the direction of your own life. It is the small, deliberate act of refusing to be the gravity that holds him to the planet while he pretends he is floating free. It is you, deciding that the orbit he put you into, the one where you circled him endlessly while he stood at the center, pretending not to want you to circle, was an orbit you had agreed to without ever being asked. And now you are stepping out of it, quietly, without ceremony, without a long and final paragraph of explanation that he would not have read anyway. Now, what does your quiet actually do to him? This is the question I want to stay on for a moment, because I think most people, even smart ones, even people who have read all the books, get the mechanics of this wrong. The assumption is that your quiet hurts him in the same way his quiet hurt you, that it is punishment, that it is revenge, that it is meant to make him feel what he made you feel. That is not what your quiet is doing at all. Your quiet is doing something more interesting than that. Your quiet is holding up a mirror, and the mirror is showing him the version of you he treated as if she were replaceable. And the version is not there anymore. She is not where he used to find her. She is not checking in. She is not softening. She is not negotiating. She is somewhere else entirely, occupied with her own gravity, busy in a way that has nothing to do with him, and he can feel that. He can feel it the way you feel weather change. He cannot name it yet. He does not have the word for it, but he knows something. Here's what is actually happening underneath all of this. There is a void, and then there is a vacuum. He created the void deliberately. The void is what he intended, the absence of contact, the empty thread, the dropped off voice note, the unreturned text. He meant for the void to be a message. He meant for you to read it. You did read it. You read it more carefully than he realized. And instead of doing what the void wanted you to do, you did the thing the void could not have prepared for. You created a vacuum around yourself. You stopped feeding energy into this empty space. You stopped sending little pings into the dark to check whether he was still on the other side. You stopped maintaining the connection he wanted to feel without having to maintain. And the moment you stopped maintaining, the vacuum began to work. A vacuum, by definition, is what happens when something that had been held in place by effort is suddenly not held in place. It does not announce itself. It does not ring a bell. It simply pulls. Imagine him 3 or 4 days in, lying on his side of the bed, reaching for his phone out of habit, opening the thread with your name on it, and seeing nothing. No new message. No little voice note from earlier. No image of what you ate for lunch with no caption because you used to send him those. Nothing. He did not expect you to disappear into your own life. He expected you to keep sending little offerings into the silence, the way a child sends letters into a chimney, hoping for an answer. He expected you to be loyal to the hope he had quietly extinguished. And now there is nothing to receive. The thread is cold, the way only an empty room can be cold, and he is sitting in the cold. And here is what begins, the echo. The echo starts small, like a memory that has been kept in a drawer for years that suddenly makes sense when nothing else is louder than it. He begins to recall specific things. The way you laughed when the cat did something stupid. The way you read the room when his mother was over. The way you said his name when you were not thinking about how you were saying his name. He did not expect these small perfections to come back to him as weight. He expected them to stay filed away under things that did not work. And he expected his new quiet life to feel lighter without them. He expected absence to feel like freedom. And instead the absence is filling up with the kind of detail you only notice after the detail is gone. That is the echo. A small recurring sound that grows louder in a room where there is nothing else to hear it. The weight comes next. He begins to feel it physically. He is sitting across from a colleague at lunch, and she makes a joke, and his first thought is, "You would have loved that." And then he is irritated at himself for thinking it, and then he is irritated at you for being inside his head. And then, here is the part he could not have anticipated. He begins to ask himself whether his irritation at you is actually his irritation at himself for letting you go. He did not expect to miss you. He had built a sophisticated little internal narrative in which he was the one who had grown past the relationship, had chosen a quieter life, had decided to be alone for a while because being alone was more honest than being in the wrong partnership. He expected that narrative to hold. He expected to walk around inside it comfortably. And the narrative will not hold. The narrative is leaking. The narrative is sagging in the middle. He can feel himself inside it, trying to keep it standing. And he can feel that the keeping is exhausting. And he can feel that you are not helping him keep it standing by being absent. The reckoning happens around now. The reckoning is the moment he stops trying to hold the old narrative up. The reckoning is when he begins to consider, very quietly, in private, in the dark, on the back porch at 2 a.m, with a drink going flat beside him, that he may have been wrong about you. Not wrong about what you did, wrong about what you were. Wrong about whether you were good enough, wrong about whether he deserved you. Wrong about whether the life he was building, the one that had been carefully designed to be safe and small and free of the kind of love that requires him to show up emotionally, was actually the life he wanted, or whether it was the life he had inherited from some earlier self who never learned that love is something you do, not something you watch from a distance. He begins to wonder if the silence you are giving him is not punishment but dignity. He begins to wonder if the distance you are keeping is not coldness, but a self-respect he never thought you would find. He begins to wonder, and the wondering is what undoes him. He did not expect you to hold yourself with that kind of steady gravity. He expected you to be lighter than you are. He expected the weight to be in him, the pull to be in him, the choosing to be in him. He expected to be able to send his silence out like a paper boat and have you swim out after it. And you did not swim. You walked inside. You closed the door. You sat in the chair that faces your own life. And through that door, which he had assumed was open, he can no longer see you. And that is when he begins to feel it. Not the guilt, not the relief. The other thing, the thing he cannot yet name. The thing that looks If he could see it from above, like the inside of a terrarium, closed, quiet, self-contained, green, the whole tiny world going on without him. Let me explain something about this terrarium image, because I want you to understand what is happening inside him, and I want you to understand that none of it is for you to manage. A terrarium is its own small weather. It circulates its own air. It runs on its own light. It does not need the person who set it aside to come back and check on it. It goes on. You are the terrarium. You have been quietly, without announcing it, becoming the terrarium. And the man who walked away from you is now standing on the other side of the glass, watching you be the terrarium, beginning to understand that he cannot reopen the lid without breaking it. That is what your quiet has built, not a punishment, a museum of who you have been while he was busy being uninterested. A terrarium is what you were always supposed to be, and it took his leaving for you to discover it. Imagine the terrarium again, in 6 months, 6 years, when this season is just a small weather pattern you sometimes remember. The light inside it is steady. The air inside it is moving. The lid is on. The woman inside has finished becoming the woman the man could not stay beside. The terrarium does not require his narrative of her anymore. It does not require his attention to keep circulating. It does not require his approval to feel like a real place. It is a real place because she is in it. That is the whole architecture of what your silence has built. And the architecture did not need him to acknowledge it for it to be standing. And here is the part that I need you to hear. None of this is your job. None of his wondering is yours to answer. None of his rattling around inside his own silence is yours to soothe. He is not doing this work for you. He is doing this work for himself. The way a man finally cleans out a closet he has been avoiding for years. Not because someone told him to, but because the piles are starting to lean. And you are not the closet. You are not the cleaning. You are the woman who now, sitting on the other side of his silence, gets to be the one who is finally not in service of his becoming. That is your dignity. That is your self-respect. That is the inheritance of this whole difficult season. The part of it that will still be yours in 5 years when you barely remember what he looked like in the morning. Let me pause on that for a second, because I know what is happening in your head right now. I know you are wondering if your dignity will cost you the relationship. I know you are wondering if this kind of self-respect is going to lose him. I know you are asking, very quietly, whether being the terrarium will leave you alone. And the answer is, and I want to be careful about how I say this, because I do not want you to hear a slogan where I want you to hear a truth. The answer is, you were already alone inside the version of the relationship that did not allow you to be this. You were alone in it the way a person is alone in a room full of people who do not actually see her. So this aloneness, this new aloneness, this aloneness that has your feet on the floor of your own life is not the aloneness you were trying to avoid. It is the aloneness you have finally arrived inside. And it is not empty. It is full in a way the old relationship never was. Now, let me give you something practical, because I am not in the business of leaving you at the bottom of a metaphor. The first thing I want you to do today, before anything else, is pick up the phone for someone who actually loves you. Not for him. For the friend who has been texting you all week and getting your polite 2-word replies. For the sister who has been quietly making sure you are still eating. For the cousin who has been waiting in the wings without making any noise. Pick up the phone, not to perform your okayness, but because being loved right now is the medicine you have been refusing to take. Then I want you to move your body. Not the punishing workout, not the class you paid for and stopped going to. The walk that has nothing on the agenda. The walk where the only thing that happens is that your nervous system gets to settle inside a body that is moving forward through space. Then I want you to eat something warm on a plate, sitting down, not standing in front of the fridge. Then I want you to sleep, and then I want you to do that again tomorrow, and again the day after. I know those instructions sound small. They are meant to, They are not the glittering instructions of a self-improvement reel. They are the small, real instructions of a woman who is rebuilding the floor of her own life, one plank at a time. They are the re-entry, the quiet re-entry into being the kind of person who is inside her own life, occupying it, taking up room in it, not waiting for permission to exist in it. I want you to notice something. The next time you are tempted, and you will be tempted, probably within the week, to send him a long, careful, restrained message designed to be so unneedy that it could not possibly be read as needy, I want you to notice that temptation for what it is. It is the old script. It is the choreography returning. It is the version of you that was trained to keep the door open for a man who did not have the decency to walk through it gracefully. That version does not get to make the decision this time. You do. And the version of you sitting in the terrarium, the version that has her feet on the floor, the version that understands what her dignity costs and is willing to pay it, that version is the one choosing. This is the part nobody likes to hear. You are not going to hear from him, not this week, possibly not next. He is not going to text you the long-awaited message that says, I have done the work and I understand what I lost. He is not going to tell you he was wrong. He is not going to show up at your door. He is probably going to wait. He is going to wait for you to come back to the orbit he designed for you, the one where you circled while he stood at the center, pretending not to want you there. And if you go back to that orbit, you will lose the terrarium you have built. The lid will come off. The little weather inside will stop circulating, and you will be the small version of yourself again, the version who was easier for him to be near because she was no threat to his limitations. Do not let him have that version back. She was never the real one. She was a survival adaptation shaped around his emotional immaturity. The real one is the one you are becoming in the quiet. And if he does come back, and I will be honest with you, sometimes they do come back. Sometimes the wandering becomes more than they can hold. Sometimes the silence of their own finally breaks them. Then you are going to be the one who decides. Not the woman who waited, not the woman who orbited, the woman who built the terrarium, the woman who held the dignity of her own life in her own hands, who found out what the silence was actually doing to her, who discovered that she could live without his narrative of her and start writing her own. That woman is the one who gets to decide whether he re-enters, and his re-entry will not be on the old terms. He is going to have to show up. Not in the careful, half-present, low-effect, gently orbiting way he used to show up. He is going to have to walk through the door of his own limitations. And that is the part he has never been prepared to do. Let me be clear about one thing as we get close to the end. Nothing in this script is a promise. I am not telling you he is going to come back. I am not telling you he is going to change. I am telling you that the work you are doing in the quiet is not wasted because he is or is not standing on the other side of the glass. The work you are doing in the quiet is your life. It is the woman you are becoming. It is the woman you will be in any relationship that comes next, with him or with someone else, or with the version of you who chooses to be alone for a while because she has finally understood that being alone is not the punishment she was told it was, but a kind of home she is allowed to furnish. Your silence is the work. Your self-respect is the work. The patience you are learning to extend to yourself is the work. The terrarium is the work. Everything else is weather. His silent treatment, the one he is doing to you right now, is the loudest confession he has ever made. It is the confession of a man who has no language for what he lost. It is the confession of a man who built a quiet life he thought was freedom and discovered it was a different kind of lonely. It is the confession of a man who, in the back of his mind, he will not yet admit out loud, knows that the woman who is finally standing on her own side of the glass is the woman he should have stayed beside. He will not say that yet. He will not say it for a long time. But you do not need him to say it for you to be certain of it. You can hear it from inside the terrarium. You can hear it in the small sounds he makes when your name comes up in conversations he did not start. You can hear it in the way he texts you eventually, after the waiting has gone on longer than his pride could hold. Some smaller message, some careful, low-effect sentence, some version of "I miss you" that does not yet have the courage to be the whole truth. When that message comes, and it may not, your job is to notice it, to notice who you are when you read it, to notice whether the woman reading it is the small version he trained or the terrarium version you have built, to notice whether your hands shake because you are afraid of losing him or because you are afraid of losing the new, quieter, more dignified language you have started speaking inside your own life. To notice whether the answer your body gives is the answer that serves her, the woman on the other side of the glass, the woman who learned in the silence how to be without him in a way that did not require her to disappear. If the body says no, the body is correct. If the body says wait, then wait. If the body says yes, then yes, but only on the new terms. Only with a man who has done the work of walking through the door of his own limitations. Only with a man who can hold the silence instead of running from it. Only with a man who has stopped asking you to be the easier version of yourself and has started being the harder version of himself. You have spent weeks, months maybe, waiting for him to do something, to text, to call, to show up, to explain himself, to acknowledge. And I am asking you very gently to stop waiting. Not because he is not going to do anything, he might, but because your waiting has been the door he expected to find open, and that door is now closed. Your waiting has been the orbit he expected to feel. That orbit is now empty. Your waiting has been the version of you he counted on. That version has been retired. The woman you are becoming is a woman who does not wait in doorways. She is a woman who walks through her own life with her own light. She is a woman whose dignity is not a performance but a posture. She is a woman whose self-respect is not a slogan but a slow, daily, unflashy decision to refuse to be smaller than she is. That woman does not need the silent treatment to end to be okay. She is okay now, quietly, without anyone's permission. Inside the small, green, self-sustaining, weather-circulating lid closed, hers only architecture of her own becoming. That is the verdict. That is the truth. That is the part nobody on the internet is going to tell you. Because the part nobody tells you is the part you have to discover for yourself in the silence. And so I will close this the way I open. His silence is not cruelty. It is confession. The confession is the only honest thing he has produced in months. And the woman on the other side of it, the woman hearing it, the woman not answering it, the woman allowing herself to be transformed by it, is becoming a kind of woman no man has ever been ready for, including possibly him. That is not her problem. That is his.